Ryan, it's great to see you today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's great to be here.
So, Ryan, you're a well-known OSINT analyst and you've done a lot of stuff, but you're watching what's going on now in Ukraine. Some people are saying that soon Ukraine will be receiving some F-16s. What
Yeah.
do you think about that? Is that really a game changer or is it just hype?
Everything has been a game changer, but if you put enough game changers in one place, you might actually be able to change the game. Belgium is donating 30 F-16s. The Netherlands is donating 42 F-16s. Denmark 19. So now you've got over 80 F-16s. That's enough for 6 squadrons. A squadron is roughly 12 planes. Could be more, could be less, and a training squadron. And Ukraine might actually keep some of those squadrons outside of Ukraine, or they may fly them back to the West for those planes to be maintained. It's a really big deal because the capability the F-16 brings, and the kind of F-16 we're talking about here, it's kind of roughly equivalent to like a Gulf War era Block 50, Block 52 F-16, which means we're talking about AN/APG 66 upgraded radar. We're talking about early warning receivers. We're talking about being able to use targeting pods. And what this gives Ukraine is a capability beyond what it has now in 4 essential areas. The first is air to air. And in that case, right now, Russia has the advantage when it comes to air missiles. They have a missile called the R-37, has a range of roughly 120 miles, some say up to like 400 or so kilometers, although I don't think that's really possible. But essentially, Russia flies MiG-31s and right outside of Ukraine's airspace, and they just kind of wait for Ukrainian fighters to pop up. They see them, they shoot. And since Ukrainian MiG-29s, Su-27s, they don't really have the kind of early warning radar that most modern planes have. Ukraine relies on ground radar or radar that's based on the ground to detect these incoming missiles, and then it has to tell these planes, "Hey, go home. Someone just fired a missile at you." That's a huge problem. Now, by using America's long-range missiles like the AIM-120 AMRAAM, which have a range of, it depends on the variant, but we're talking 60 miles, 80 miles. By using that, it doesn't quite get to parity as the Russian R-37, but it gets close. And it should be enough to force Russia to move back because they don't want to lose any more fighters. They don't want to start tangling with Ukraine. So step one, phase one, using the F-16 is to establish air dominance with the AMRAAM missile. Step two is to start using the HARM anti-radiation missile, or essentially an anti-radar missile. This missile kind of goes and sniffs out radar the way a pig sniffs out truffles. Now, right now, the MiG-29 is equipped with the HARM anti-radiation missile, but it has to be pre-programmed on the ground. The F-16 is designed to be able to detect radar, and once it detects that radar, tell the HARM missile, hey, go shoot down the beam of that radar. So it can do it on the fly, literally on the fly. You can go and hunt radar like this. So you'll have an F-16, it's kind of like a bait plane. The radar will light up that bait plane. The F-16 will turn, launch the radar, or launch the missile right down that radar beam, turn away. And that is really difficult because now Russia should be scared to turn on their radar because they don't know what's going to happen. When they turn on that radar, they might get a missile right down that beam. Phase three is the JDAM-ER, or a Joint Direct Attack Munition Extended Range. This is a GPS-guided glide bomb. Now, I know that Russia has been degrading GPS capabilities, but how do you degrade GPS capabilities? Well, you do that with a GPS jammer. What does a GPS jammer do? Well, it transmits. And if something is transmitting, what can you do? You can home in on jam. So with HARM anti-radiation missiles and with the JDAM-ER, once they turn those jammers on, we can go, oh, there's the source of the jammer, fire a missile right down that jammer beam. And that should free up the electromagnetic spectrum in order to use the JDAM-ER precision glide bombs to destroy Russian troop concentrations, to destroy Russian logistics sites, and to destroy any sites at the front if they're trying to perform an attack or a breakthrough. And the fourth thing is the harm and the fourth thing is the Harpoon anti-ship missile. Now, Russia is still using ships, platforms in the Black Sea to launch cruise missiles against cities inside of Ukraine. So if you take out these ships, that's one less platform Russia can use as a cruise missile launching device. So the F-16 is really a quadruple effect weapon system, and that's kind of where the whole game changer thing falls into place.
So that's a very convincing argument, a very good sales tactic of why we should be buying F-16s or giving them to Ukraine in this
Yeah.
case. But a lot of people say that's unrealistic. I mean, the F-16s, it takes a lot of training, not just for the pilots, but for the mechanics. It takes a lot of
Yeah.
spare parts. And obviously, if they were stored within Ukraine, we could expect that the Russians would try to strike them. What would you say to those naysayers?
Machines are going to get destroyed in war. That's just war. And the F-16 is not invulnerable. Now, the argument to destroying F-16s on the ground while they're at airfields, that is certainly possible, but Russia hasn't really done that to start. Attacking airfields is really dangerous business. And that would mean Russia would have to launch an operation where they penetrate Ukrainian airspace and they try to fight their way towards these air bases. And so far, other than at the beginning of the war, they really haven't done that. They've mainly hung outside the periphery of Ukraine and done things like launch cruise missiles, launch glide bombs. So Russia might certainly be able to strike at some of these airfields, but they're going to have to do it while fighting their way through Ukraine's own surface-to-air missiles and Ukraine's scrambled fighters. And that just might be a cost decision that Russia's going to have to weigh. If you send a strike package of 18 fighters to attack one airbase, but you lose 9 of those fighters trying to attack one airbase and destroy a couple of fighters on the ground, what have you won? All right. So that's always a calculation you're going to do. There is not going to be any kind of attack without some sort of loss on the Russian side. So really the calculus is how much is it worth to attack these F-16s?
So let's talk about a totally different aspect of the war. A lot's been going on with drones, as you know. And a lot of people said that this war has totally revolutionized the way that drones are used in warfare. What do you think about that? How do you see the situation with drones?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I think drones are having their moment right now, mainly because we haven't developed an EW counter program. We haven't really developed a way to shoot them down. We haven't really developed a way to attrit their ability to fly. And supposedly, I think it's Ukraine is losing 10,000 drones every week, roughly. And that could be to enemy fire, that could be to electronic warfare. Now, for every sword, there's a shield. So someone develops a weapon, then someone develops a countermeasure. Drones might be having their moment right now because nobody has created a really effective countermeasure against these drones. However, I can tell you as a guy who has a job working at a drone startup that makes AI-powered drones, once we can load artificial intelligence onto these drones, and drones will be able to navigate without using GPS or without using commands from an operator, that's going to be kind of interesting because those kinds of drones are going to be almost impossible to stop unless you stop them kinetically. So I think drones have changed warfare, but I don't know if that's necessarily going to be the case going forward because there are going to be countermeasures developed because this has been such a unique moment in warfare history.
So you work in cybersecurity and you have a strong understanding of how that is. So
Yeah.
what do you think about cyber? Do you think that there's been more cyber attacks than usual in a war, or what have we seen that's unusual or unique in this war in the world of cyber?
Russia has tried cyber attacks against Ukraine. Those attacks really haven't been all that successful, mainly because Ukraine was the subject of a cyber attack back in 2020. They learned their lesson there. Ukraine has some pretty darn good cyber defenses, and they've decoupled a lot of their infrastructure from the public internet. If there's no way of attacking a network because the network is physically air gapped between the closed network and the public internet, then you can cyber attack all you want. You're not getting over that moat, right? So I think Ukraine has been very smart when it comes to cyber. The Russian attacks on Ukrainian infrastructure have not been as effective, mainly because Ukraine takes this very seriously. And they have a lot of good engineers in Ukraine that know what they're doing. Information warfare is a little bit of a different story. You consider information warfare to be a subset of cyber, but Ukraine is just very well prepared and very well decoupled, mainly because of some cyber attacks they sustained in 2020.
So overall, though, when you look at the battlefield, you see what's going on. Russia's just attempted a new offensive in Kharkiv. How successful would you say that offensive was, and what else do you see happening on the battlefield?
It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. And I think a lot of that has to do with Ukraine's C4 ISR, or command control communications, computers, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance. Uh, Ukraine is at the point where there's so many drones in the air that Russia really can't put together anything more than maybe a company, because a company being 110 soldiers, maybe 12 tanks, 12, 14 tanks. Russia just, they can't put together anything larger than a company to perform an attack, because it puts out such an electronic, thermal, and visual signature that Ukraine knows exactly where that attack is coming from, and they can counter that attack with artillery, with HIMARS, with drones, just swarming FPV drones into a location. So that really blunted that Russian attack, and plus Russia is suffering from the same problem that Ukraine was suffering from last year or last summer during the summer offensive, and that is war is hard, and fighting your way through minefields and prepared defensive positions against an entrenched enemy that wants to be there is very difficult. And I don't really see how Russia thought that their outcome was going to be any different than Ukraine's outcome. But when it's a contest of metal, when it's a contest of flesh against metal, the metal usually wins. And Russia just kept running right into the meat grinder, and Ukraine just kept grinding meat. So it was not a very successful offensive by Russia, and Russia probably should have known that.
Ryan, that was an awesome analysis. I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much, Jay. I'm so happy that you invited me on.